Yeah. So this is, can we separate the art from the artist for DCI Banks? Um, yeah, I mean, if it was Google, wouldn't they actually say some creepy things because they've been all up in your computers in the last like 2 weeks? Yeah, this is can we separate the art from the artist? And it's art roundtable in collaboration with Chris Richards, the pop music critic from the Washington Post, blah 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 blahs. Okay, let's just do this. The only thing in the uplift is your SSRI dosage. Yeah. So, the past couple of years have been filled with news about artists and entertainers' history of sexual harassment and assault. But the bad behavior artist isn't limited to that. Many musicians are outspokenly racist. Some have committed crimes or even murders. Others are just terrible jerks. How, if at all, should the personal character and moral transgressions of musicians change what we think about and how we act in regard to their music? Whether we can separate the art from the artist is the fifth of the 5 hardest questions in pop music, as described by the Washington Post pop music critic Chris Richards. Below is the guiding question, accompanied by a few examples that Richard finds particularly salient, followed by our contributors' responses. Question 5. Can we separate the art from the artist? 1. Many beloved gods of popular songs were accused of domestic abuse during their careers and after their deaths. John Lennon, James Brown, Miles Davis, lots more. How does the work of separating the art from the artist change once the artist is dead? And I mean, you can just switch musician for philosopher. A lot of philosophers done a lot of shitty things. Maybe they weren't domestic abusers, but they have a plenty of, like, it's a, what's the list? A demon's list. 2. I once heard a podcast with a high-profile music critic who said that he felt an obligation to review the work of a famous pop singer who had recently pleaded guilty to felony assault. This critic believed that engaging with the artist's work and all the naughtiness that came with it was the responsibility of a good critic. I think I disagree. I feel that critics do plenty of unseen critical work every day by not writing about a majority of the world's music, and in this particular case, I don't think the artist's popularity meant that his mediocre music automatically merited discussion. Who is right? 3. A hypothetical. You've recently become interested in Scandinavian black metal, a heavy metal subgenre where the lyrics are often completely impossible for any rookie ear to make out. You purchased an album by a particular group and you enjoy listening to it week in, week out. Then months later, you read an interview with the band's lead singer and learn that he self-identifies as white supremacist. As an ethical listener, what's your next move? And the contributors are Eva Daedalus, professor of humanities and philosophy at University of Central Oklahoma, David Hetty, stand-up comic with 2 albums who teaches comedy writing at McGill and Toronto's Flying Book School of Reading and Writing. What a lie. Yeah, but I mean, if I don't listen to metal, if I try to listen to metal, I will not be able to understand. So, not you, me. Shen Yi Liao, Associate Professor of Philosophy at University of Puget Sound. Stephanie Partridge, Professor of Philosophy at Otterbein University. Matthew Stroll, Associate Professor at the University of Montana. And Mary Beth Willard, Associate Professor at Weber State. Okie dokie. Pantera, Turbo, something. Both bands I'm kind of should like these. Oh, okay. I mean, I don't listen to enough. I haven't listened to much lately. Kind of boring. You will use the arguments in this article to elevate whether I should listen to Kanye. Yeah, Kanye's got problems too. Like, he thinks he's God. He really does. It's like, it's kind of crazy. He thinks he's like, I'm Jesus. I can like love everyone. I can love Hitler. It's like, you're not Jesus, Kanye. You're delusional. Okay, Eva Daedalus. So I'm making a good faith endeavor to introduce my contemporary moral problems students to arguments advanced against for-profit insurance and the contention that it incentivizes turning down claims. To that end, I popped Michael Moore's documentary Sicko into the DVR. To my horror, the Miramax logo followed by Harvey Weinstein scrolls onto the screen. It's too late to fast forward. Crap. Sexual harassment and misconduct by artists and art producers, Weinstein, Louis C.K., Spacey, Cosby, etc., have raised questions not only about the film industry, but about how art appreciators should respond to the work of these individuals in light of the disclosures and admissions that have flooded every media outlet. And while Sicko is not art, my experience suggested that any work, well, it's not, why is Sicko not art? I mean, it's a movie, isn't it? But whatever. and my experience suggested that any work might be considered somehow tainted by association with a miscreant. I think also Spacey did not actually get convicted, or he's back on trial for a second one, but he got out of the first one. Turns out, I mean, yes, he likes younger men. That's not illegal. The person was of age, I believe. And then they were trying to take advantage of Spacey. They basically were trying to get money out of him. But that doesn't mean he's innocent. It just means that the person that accused him and he was on trial for. It's like, yeah. Sicko's a documentary about U.S. healthcare system. Oh, that's right. Documentaries, is that not art? It's not like it's a news program. And even then, that's sort of a media thing. So, I mean, it's not like high art maybe considered, but still, like, is a movie or a documentary still not some sort of art? I mean, it's arbitrary, that line there. Okay, at least two distinct questions are at issue here. First, there is a practical question regarding the decision to continue consuming the artist's or producer's work. This is a question about inclinations to boycott the work of people whom one disapproves. In many of the preceding cases of performer misconduct, programs have been canceled by networks in kind of a preemptive strike prior to any organized protest. Such cancellation and prospective boycotts as well are not an indictment of the work, but of the artist or art producer. Programs were canceled not because artistry had suddenly and radically diminished, but because the popularity of the artist had waned for reasons unrelated to artistry. The second question is less practical but more interesting to an aesthetician. Should our judgment regarding the work or performance itself be affected by such disclosures? Is a film less good if it is produced by a rapist, a role less expertly performed if it is performed by a harasser, a routine less funny if an exploitive exhibitionist performs it? It depends. More precisely, it depends whether the attitudes that we object to, perhaps attitudes according to which the above-mentioned conduct is harmless or playful or permissible, are endorsed in the film or performance. That needn't mean, of course, that any actor portraying a rapist must be thought to endorse rape or uncritical attitudes toward it. I love this because this was one of the things. It showed the racism in like the media industry. Someone was asking Ice Cube if he felt bad playing a cop once. And he was like, do you ask white people if they feel bad about playing murderers? And the person had to eat their words very fast. Nor need it mean that such subjects themselves are out of bounds. A work or performance might be thought to endorse a problematic attitude towards objectionable sexual conduct when it invites us to imagine conduct of that kind as attractive or funny or arousing or indicative of a turbulent and passionate character unfettered by the restraints of afflicting ordinary men. Yeah, so it's like if they're sort of excusing the bad behavior because, you know, they're such an artist that they just can't control themselves and like that makes the abuse okay. It's like, no, it doesn't. What does that actually, how do you actually say that that's okay just because they're doing it? Like, why? So far, that might provide an ethical ground for condemning a work, but many philosophers believe that such endorsements can undermine aesthetic or artistic worth as well. More Hume. In Of the Standard of Taste, David Hume criticized the work in which vicious manners are described without being marked with the proper characters of blame and disapprobation. We cannot, Hume continues, enter into such sentiments, and however we may excuse the poet on account of the manners of his age, we never can relish the composition. I mean, again, you have to remember, Hume was of his day, was just as racist as everybody else, but as pointed out many times over, there were non-racists back in Hume's day too. So like Hume could have not been racist if he wanted to, but he was seemingly a happy racist. And so can we relish his composition? Yeah. This incapacity or disinclination is thought by philosophers like Noel Carroll to identify an aesthetic flaw. For Hume, continues, a very violent effort is requisite to excite some sentiments of approbation or blame different from those to which the mind has been familiarized. That is, the work or the performance may well have failed to elicit the emotional attitude of enthusiasm or approbation that it undertook to elicit. Inserting emergency after the fact referenced here. This kind of imaginative resistance has been productively and provocatively discussed in the blog of philosopher Kathleen Stock, who recently posted Imaginative Resistance and the Woody Allen Problem. So I guess you can say, basically, like if it fails to actually do what it's doing, like it's supposed to do, then it's like, well, Like the attitude, if it fails to get attitude or probation to elicit, it's like, what's it doing? Okay. The disruption of imaginative immersion is held by some, but by no means all, to have a conceptual difficulty at its basis. That is, our conception of the limits of moral permissibility may undermine our ability to imagine non-consensual sex as a deeply satisfying expression of affection, just because we can't imagine what we can't conceive. We can, of course, imagine that characters believe their conduct is appropriate, even if we do not. Okay, so what was being said is, like, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you're giving them a pass because you don't understand. I wasn't quite sure what was going on in the previous paragraph. But we cannot imagine it permissible ourselves unless we believe the permissibility of such an action or policy is possible. Yeah, so if you believe abuse is possible and you could do it, then you would understand, but that makes you already a crappy person. You already sort of can imagine being like an abuser and liking it, and that would be weird. Okay, perhaps in the unusual context the fiction presents or in an otherwise restricted range of cases, something which strongly suggests the moral and probably other attitudes transcend fictional contexts. It's like, yeah, do you give yourself a pass just because you're in like a different country? It's like, is the old do as the Romans do, which is interesting because the Romans, that's actually a Roman saying, and it wasn't when in Rome, it was when not in Rome. When not in Rome, do as the barbarians do, So it says that when in Rome, do as the Romans do, but like the actual old saying was when not in Rome. In other words, works and performances can make us complicit in the attitudes they endorse. The endorsement of attitudes most are inclined to resist might be thought of as an aesthetic flaw as well as a moral one. Yeah, so if you're trying to get people to like enjoy abuse, like that's kind of fucked up. MDD says, I like how this question is relevant to philosophy as well, though maybe with a different flavor. How comfortable should philosophers be throwing Heidegger's name around or giving him a praise? Yeah, no, I mean, it's the same thing. Hume was racist. Like, okay. I mean, Heidegger gets a ding because he was also a Nazi. So it's more recent dealing with Heidegger, but it's like, all of this is going to also like talk about philosophers too. Okay, so this is a good question. If they're asking to imagine something crappy, like abuse, say, or any other crappy thing, like, is that good aesthetically? It's like, no. And if they're doing it in their art, that's bad. And it's like, yeah, so how do you actually separate out, like, works of art that have abuse in them? And that feels like kind of, it's weird. It's like, what are you actually producing in the person? If you're producing in the person like some sort of disgust, maybe that's a good thing. But if the work of art is not producing disgust with the sort of like the bad thing, then like, is that an aesthetic defect? And it might be. Well, we got a whole bunch of people sending me stuff. What's going on here? Okay. Ooh, more fan art. There we go. That's what we're talking about. Let's go look at the fan art real fast. Speaking of art, oh my God, is it like Kanye? I've been Kanye-fied. That's terrible. Oh my God, more creepy, more clown. Who is this? Somebody else, but my hair's long. Yeah, look at my hair getting like all long like that. What is this? Like me as, I don't know who that is. What the hell is going on? Oh my God. Alright, more fan art. Thank you. Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know, Cinesemiotics has been has a lot of fun with the AI and art. Yeah. So yeah. I kind of like that it's changing up my background too. It's giving me more like this one here has got me like, cameras and like broadcasting equipment. That's nice. This one's got some chairs. That's kind of cool. More broadcasting equipment. This looks more like spotlights and booms. And then yeah, me as, I don't know what this is of me, but like different haircut. Kind of pretty. Again, this one too. But yeah, wonderful art. I mean, I saved your other one here. Like the other one's like right here still. So for anyone who hasn't seen it before, there was other art. And so this was the first round over here from April 17th. You tell you what you want to incorporate. I'll put in the mix. Want an alligator, dude? I have no idea. Like it's all kind of crazy. All right, so that was the first little one. We've got 4 more, so we got a little bit of time. That didn't take long, and that was a nice bite-sized thing. Think about it. What is actually bad about the aesthetics? If you just don't like the person, yeah, you can cancel them. That's fine. But then what happens when you put like the morally bad thing into the art? Is that something we think is actually of any aesthetic value? Not really. Like why would you want to have that crap in there? You're trapping me in a Chinese room. Oh, great. Thanks, Frank. You want a rat stealing my pizza? Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, so now we're getting chat suggestions. Yeah, if Cinesemiax wants to take them, go right ahead. That's true. It's true, MDD. DCI says, I wonder how the film industry would change if only the title and the synopsis were publicized and the credits and the actors were stored in an IMDb, for instance, if you care to know, instead of hiding a film behind the names of actors marketed to the production company. Yeah, so basically only the content, not the actors. I mean, that would change a lot of stuff because, celebrity culture is important here. Wants me as Heidegger. I mean, okay. Like I said, Frank, I can't actually read. This is all an AI, and I'm just like sitting here looking good, and it's just making my mouth go like this. That's all it is. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't know when you sent that, Cinesemiotics, that link, but thank you again. But, yeah, it's like I don't see the, Twitch whispers immediately. Oh man. Oh, I have to save all this fan art somewhere. Maybe put it up in like the Discord. Yeah. For those who don't know, I have socials. I mean, I don't really use them, but whatever. The Phil Papers is my stuff. The YouTube is where the reviews of papers go. I'm gonna have the website for the reviews themselves. Vipers, we should just send you a picture of that. That's fine. And then the Discord, you can get alerts and stuff. That's basically, you can chat with me and like some of the community members there. But basically, I use it for announcements. Your DMs are open. Yeah, it is Aristotle. That's right. Okay, so this is David Hetty's response. As an ethical listener, what's your next move? I don't know what ethical listener means. I don't know that there is such a thing as an ethical listener. I don't think that I would want there to be such a thing as an ethical listener. The question to me really is a kind of nonsense. I think that I understand what the question is attempting to ask, but then I disagree with what I understand to be its fundamental underlying assumptions. I think that I disagree with both what the question assumes to be ethics and art, and then, of course, the intersection of the two. Drink. Yeah, I'm losing it. Get something else from somebody else. Oh. Stupid Twitch. Alright. But that said, adopting what I understand ethical listener to mean, I would think that there ought not to be ethical listeners. Most meaningfully, that is that which only is meaningful. If I found out that the band's lead singer self-identified as a white supremacist, I would continue listening to the music if and only if I still dug the music. Interesting. So this guy just completely separates it. He says, if I like the music, I like the music. I don't think ethics enters into whatever it is that draws one to a particular work of art, and I think that one ought to allow oneself to be drawn to whatever art to which they are drawn. There are different kinds of ethical being proper to particular areas of life, and I think that if we were forced to speak of an ethics of art spectator or listenership, the imperative would be, what do you think? For example, knowing that the lead singer is a white supremacist, bad tipper, volunteers their Sunday mornings, etc. Refreshing for review of Nogradiger. Is he talking about Pantera? Oh, okay, here we go. Copy link. Frank says it is very possible I will stop enjoying a song if I learn that the band is a white supremacist. I think this is a great answer. Okay, so... did not load. Aha, here we go. Second time through. Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, this is a sort of like classic Heidegger look. And, like, it kind of got his face. I don't think Heidegger actually wore this kind of clothes, but maybe he did. But yeah, I think he had like, I don't remember what his haircut was, but like, yeah, look at that. This is kind of, I think, what Heidegger did look like a bit. So yeah. Lost Prophets are probably the biggest example of a band you shouldn't listen to anymore. There's one guy, and he always gets brought up that he basically is a white supremacist and he's a Nazi and stuff. A musician, he's a metal guy, and people love it. It's like something with an M in it or something. I forget. So, unfortunately, I don't care about metal, so I have no idea who it is. But like there's one really good example, someone who's really 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 good at some sort of metal, and it turns out like the guy is just a complete piece of shit. The lead singer from Ian Watkins is pedo. That's sad. But yeah, I mean I'm not gonna Google it now and try and figure out who it was, but yeah, there is some metal person. But like, this is interesting because this, as an honest response, they say, do you like it? Because whatever is good in the art, the aesthetic good is not racist itself. So that's it. Is there a genre of music called precious metal? I feel there should be, though. Art's not here to be ethical. Art's not here to be anything but good art. And what that means is something I'm happy not to have an answer to. But what that certainly doesn't mean is art is in principle held up or holds itself up to standards other than its own. Because art is not ethics. So this person is just like hardliner. Art is not ethics. And it's like, if you like the art, aesthetics is not related to that. Varg Vilkernes is a black metal guy. He murdered one of his mates, and is a Nazi. Well, there you go. I don't think that's the name. That's not the name of who I'm bringing up. But, yeah. That is fucked. Okay, if art imperatively is to be ethical, it is to be ethics. If art imperatively is to be political, it is to be politics. The same is to be said of one's attunement to art. You know, you can see this is a little bit overboard, though, because everything is not always just one thing. You know, it's like you can have political art, and then you could say, well, I disagree with that politics. And it's like, well, is it still a great painting? It's like, well, can I really separate political art, the artistry, from the political art? It's like, kind of, but like, it wasn't ever just one thing. So it's like things can be multiple. And so this very hard line in the sand is a little idealistic. But they're saying the aesthetic, whatever the aesthetic is not ethical. DCI says, so my argument yesterday was that art should be detached from its author, but I'm taking myself out of it. Yeah, see, this is what happens in philosophy. It's like you read one side, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I think. Then you read the other side and you're like, they have some good points there. Viper says, what if his bandmate was a double Nazi? Well, yeah, so there we go. DCI says, the answer at the moment is sometimes you can detach it, but sometimes you shouldn't. See, now you're getting into like whatever all the rest of us are kind of stuck with, where we know the literature. It's like, yeah, both sides have good points, and it's like you just got to be careful about stuff. And that's kind of is. It's like, I know if you go over to Shane's channel and you ask, well, who was right and wrong in history? It's like, well, some people were bad, but like a lot of stuff was just complicated. It's like you don't always know what to do. Yeah. Yeah, like when it suits. It's like, well, you have to take a little bit more. There's no like blanket answer sometimes. It's like, yeah, it's not when it suits. It's not like you can just do whatever, but like you have to look at the situation, what's going on. It's like, come on. And yes, if you're here, that's right, Vipers. Everything ends up in it depends. So it's like, but these are good points that they're making. And so it's like you have to know what you're talking about to actually know what depends and what doesn't. Because sometimes people are just wrong, and other times it does depend. But you have to be able to separate those out. And that's more important, because if you're saying it depends when it's wrong, then you're one of these people, oh, well, let's hear both sides of the argument. No, let's not hear both sides of the argument when one side is just wrong. But you have to know when that is. Okay. Author says, I suppose that if I were really to attempt to be what I understand to be ethical in my art going, then the last art to which I would turn would be that with which I'm in agreement in any way. What could be less ethical than turning only to, or most to, my own community, to the people with whom I already share an understanding or feeling of the world? That's for me when I go home, when I want to turn away from art. Yeah, but I mean, that's a little excessive again. It's not in agreement with 100% of the things. It's just ethical agreement where there might be a line. But again, if you only can agree with, like, if you only deal with things you think are good, you're gonna, or already agree with, you're gonna have a very, very small world. Yeah, consult your physician to determine what kinds of art are safe for you to consume. But I mean, you do see that all the time in, like, you know, religious leaders, political leaders. Don't go look at what those other people are doing. They're bad. Like, don't listen to that music. It's the devil music. This is very common. Author ends. It's not from any idea of art that emerges the onus of being on those who don't want to separate the art from the artist to be the ones to justify themselves. Of all of the above, I am okay with being questioned by a piece of art. Yeah, so it's like, it's not from, yeah, so this person writes a little tortured, but it's not from any idea of art. It's not the art itself that is making you turn away from it if there's an ethical problem. So they're just saying the art is the art, and, you know, everything else is everything else. You philosophers and ethic bods have your work cut out for you? That's one of the reasons I don't do a ton of ethics, is just, it's all very complicated. And, you know, sometimes the logic stuff I work on, very narrow. You get down to like these little itsy points. But I mean, yeah. And then you have to go deal with, you might not be saying a whole lot of big ideas, but at least you can say something. Then like you get to here, you're just like, I don't know. And it's like, well, what was the point then either? You're just saying it depends all the time. Okay, so this is Shenyi Lao. How can you be an ethical listener? I'm a consequentialist. I doubt that your choices about which songs to stream make any moral difference to the world. We all know Spotify rips off artists anyway. Indeed, in my sterner moods, I am sympathetic to the teachings of the original consequentialist Mozi, who says that the ethical thing to do is to stop making and listening to music and instead work on sowing grains, planting trees, spinning yarns, and weaving threads. But you and I, imperfect human beings, aren't going to do that. Frank says, when I called that answer good, I misunderstood what they were going. It developed in a boring way after. Yeah, I mean, that happens sometimes. This is the little bit of a... See, if you want to give a rating to that one, that would be the shriveling grapes. It shriveled up. You thought they were going to take a hard line. They ended up just saying, no, they're different, and that's it. So, okay. DCI says, that's interesting. We can kind of expect art to push boundaries and limits, but humans, artists, we kind of prohibit extremism in sorts. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, again, what is art then? Like, why are we trying to push the limits? What are we pushing it about? Vipers asks, what about the opposite? Specifically thinking of death metal here, but when nice guys write songs with titles like Bloated Baby Corpse Fucker. I mean, that was the first response person when they were saying, well, what are you talking about in the art? Are you talking about terrible things? And like, why would we like that? Like, that's creepy and weird to like that. And that's what the first one they were talking about. The people up here with the David Hume, like, why would you want to talk about crappy stuff? Like, if that's what's in your art. And, but I mean, lots of times you're talking about crappy stuff as not like actually fucking bloated babies. That would be weird. But like, you're talking about like some idea of it that's a little different. Like, you're not actually, you know, saying that you enjoy, like, these bad things. You're kind of talking about other things. I don't know what. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, you know, it's like, I could default to, like, you know, reggae. I shot the sheriff, or I guess you could say, what's his name? Clapton. I shot the sheriff. I did not shoot his deputy. You're talking about shooting somebody. I don't like the idea of shooting anyone. That sounds terrible. But, why is that? It's like an interesting story. And that is actually what you are enjoying there. So it's not actually the shooting that we're describing. You're talking about, somebody's liberation because the sheriff was coming after a guy unjustifiably and he had to get away and shot the guy to do it. The meaning changes depending on where you put the comma. That happens a lot, Vipers. It's from Frank. Well, you know what they say. The more advanced the decay, the sweeter the lay. Yep. Cinesemiac says the entire genre of horror is predicated on the idea that we want to experience all kinds of awful stuff through art. Yeah, well, you're not actually you're experiencing some part of it. You're not actually experiencing like losing your arm. You're experiencing, like a vicarious thing. I don't know if anyone actually wants to experience losing their arm, say, in a movie. It's terrible. So, okay. Dead baby joke, yes. Yeah, emotional fantasy. Yeah, that's right, semiotics. And so it's like this, it's not exactly real, but it's like you're getting the emotions out of it. Okay, when people are suggested to stop listening to immoral artists, there is inevitably the pushback that doing so would make them miss out on some aesthetically worthy things. Behind that pushback is the assumption of aesthetic meritocracy. Only aesthetic merits or demerits should determine our allocation of attention and time. Each of us should act like aesthetic meritocrats, promoting the aesthetically worthy and demoting the aesthetically unworthy while setting aside irrelevant factors like the moral status of the artist. The assumption of aesthetic meritocracy is ridiculous for imperfect humans like us. We live in a world where there is an embarrassment of riches. We simply cannot give our attention and time to all the aesthetically worthy things that are out there. More importantly, I doubt that any of us can truly say that we are perfect aesthetic meritocrats who give our attention and time to only the most aesthetically worthy things. Our limited cognitive and material resources simply do not enable us to do so. I know that I should listen to less 90s emo and more to contemporary hip-hop, but old habits die hard. You know your shortcomings too. Yeah, who you calling imperfect? And I don't know. Like, here's the thing. Like, can we stop reading Hume? Really? Can we? Because Hume was racist, and you can like cancel Hume if you want to, but it's like that's not how philosophy operates. You can't really cancel like Plato or Hume. It's like that doesn't make any sense. And like go read a philosopher who was just like regurgitating their ideas later, but was less morally terrible. Like that's not going to work in philosophy. We don't have this embarrassment of riches. I don't think we can actually get away with this. So it's like, yeah, we do live in a world where there's an embarrassment of riches, and many times you can just go listen to another artist who is almost the same. You can't do that in all the areas. It's just not going to work. So it's like, could I get away with metaphysics without Heidegger? I don't think so. Like, you could go try to read somebody else who was like regurgitating his ideas, but why don't you just go read Heidegger and then like you can compare and contrast? Can you cancel Agni for liking Chicago pizza? I mean, there's no accounting for taste. You know this. Is liking Chicago pizza a moral failing? Actually, is liking Chicago pizza an aesthetic failing? I should take that stand that it is. That would be a much stronger position to say that liking Chicago pizza over New York pizza is an aesthetic failing and therefore worse. I can forgive a moral failing. I know that, people are morally fallible and we make mistakes for whatever reason we're weak. But the aesthetic failing, that's worse because you should at least be able to appreciate some of the fine things in life. And if you fail that right there, it might mean that you're even lesser than someone who has a moral failing. Ad hominem, I like my ad hominems. You're absolutely right. Let's be precise. It's logically fallacious to associate philosophical position with the philosopher qua person. I don't always think it's a bad thing. It is fallacious maybe in some grand scheme of things, but sometimes people are crappy and you think, you know what, maybe they're putting things together in a bad way too, and I don't want to think like them. And so you might say this argument is like logically sound, but I don't like even the form of the logic at that point. MDD says, I've always imagined a work, whether art or philosophy, prefaced with the disclaimer on the producer's ethical shortfalls, sort of like smoking kills on cigarette box. that's kind of interesting. I mean, you couldn't do that in someone's lifetime because no one wants to say that sort of shit. But it's like, yeah, I mean, kinda. I would be wrong. That was simple. Oh, what about pizza? Or the ad hominem? Don't you want to argue with me about argument forms? You're gonna lose. I can tell you. Like, it's not gonna. You're not gonna win that argument. Semiac says, if Hitler wrote a compelling essay about the merits of veganism, it's the pizza, yeah, fine then, unreal. It's the content of the essay that makes it correct or incorrect. You know, it's like, yeah, Hitler was a painter. I mean, he was a painter. Like, you can argue about his paintings. Like, it's very easy. No, it's fine. You can mention Hitler if you want. I mean, it's just inevitable in discussions like this. I mean, we always mention Heidegger, which is basically the same thing. So it's like, just how fast do you get to the Nazis? Nestle should have a similar advisor on it. Yeah, like Nestle's shit, which is really too bad. Yeah, I mean, I'd be wrong about the pizza. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's arbitrary and stupid arguing over pizza and stuff, but like, I mean, I could make a pretty interesting argument if I wanted to, but it's not worth my time. Hitler actually wrote a precise description about propaganda. I mean, that was something he knew. He wasn't stupid. Like, he could paint okay, and like, he knew lots of stuff about politics. So I was like, yeah. Oh, he stole from Edward Bernays. Okay. Systemic says, I mean, though, that it is technically true fallacy of thought, a fallacy of distraction. Yeah, but see, I could like make an argument around that. Like, it's not just distracting. Like, I could say I don't like the way that person thinks because I think that way of thinking is harmful, so I'm going to avoid their arguments because I don't want to get into a thought pattern or something. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that they may be technically true in how they argue, but I don't want to deal with that person at all. So it's like, yeah, it is fallacious in the technical sense, but I think there's like ways around arguing that, but that's getting into the weeds of like, this is what I mean. I can argue about argument forms if I want to, and then we could get into like meta argument form questions, and like, but that's just me. MDD says, I think there's a legitimate fear that an author's ideology may permeate through their work or conclusions in a way that is not initially obvious. So we ought to be cautious in approaching the work created by ethically questionable people if we aren't privy to ideological underpinnings. Exactly. It's like you feel like maybe you're going to get some of these cruddy thought patterns, and like maybe you're going to like get like in terms of philosophy, like essentialism is very damaging. Like you might think, oh, that group of that minority of people is essentially stupid or essentially lazy. Like these are racist shit that we hear. And you think like, oh, that those people are lazy and stupid. And you think maybe that's like essentialism will get in if you start listening to their other arguments that have nothing to do with like the racist crap, but you'll start getting into that mode of thought of thinking in the essentialist forms, and then all of a sudden you will be more prone to the essentialist arguments when it comes to being racist. And that would be bad. So you have to be careful about this sort of thing. Speaking of Iskra Flavor, I was in Heidegger with Iskra Flavor. Iskra Flavor asked, because she's into more political philosophy, is there anything in Heidegger that would be of any moral substance? Anything. And the teacher's answer was, Heidegger never mentions ethics. Ever. His metaphysics is completely devoid of ethics. Completely. There is nothing at all about ethics in Heidegger, which is interesting. Because maybe there should be something ethical in your metaphysics, but there's nothing there. Nothing in Heidegger. Not a fucking drop of ethics in his metaphysics. And so maybe that allowed him to be a crappy person. So do you want to take the metaphysics of somebody who has no ethics built in, and then maybe he's using that to allow him to be a crappy person? Iskra Flavor asked that question. Speaking of Iskra. Freud's nephew? Okay. Viper says, I wonder if the reticence to separate ideas coming from a corrupted vector is something to do with disgust response. Interesting. That's a good point. Maybe there's something biological we're not separating out, or like psychological. Our disease avoidance system evolved before the prefrontal cortex, like the ideas are infected. Exactly. Like a poisoned well sort of thing. We're doing that now? Yeah. DCI says, does all this start to boil back to the intent? What's your intent for liking X or Y despite knowing something or nothing about its author? Yeah, well, some of this is going back to intent. not intent. No, it's not going back to intent, because you're saying, well, maybe this person's racist ideas permeated through, and they may not be writing anything racist at the time or with the intention of it, but maybe you think they're a crappy person, and like somehow it's coming through all for some other reason. So it may not come back. It may not necessarily come back to intent. Now, the first author, when they said we're talking about, if they put some sort of terrible thing into their art, then maybe intent will make more of a difference. Like, why do you like art where people are getting hurt? I mean, that would be bad, I guess. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily bad. Like, people get hurt in a lot of things and it's not bad. But like, maybe you just like watching abuse. That might be a little bit weird. And so it's like, then intent would really make a difference, I think. Frank says, seems plausible that feelings of disgust. Yeah, agreeing with talking about vipers. Intent for liking is troubling philosophically. Did I say something dumb? I'm sorry if I did say semiotics. Like, I don't mean intent for liking. Do the things we require intent allow for intent, reveal intent? Do the things we like require intent? I don't think so. Cool. Neil Bryan says, I don't know Heidegger enough to George the claim. Heidegger was a member of the Nazi Party. He supported the Nazi Party as it was coming up. He eventually fell out of favor, but he actively supported them. He took jobs that from people that he got as political appointments from who were Jewish. He paid his Nazi dues up until 2 months until the war ended. And when you look at his notebooks, that were some of them which were recently translated, but everyone knew this, that actually spoke German, he was all those fucking Jews and shit, they're terrible and they should be eliminated. So he was full on with the anti-Semitism and the Nazi stuff. It is a established fact, and people tried to make excuses for him for a long time, but everyone knew, or they just didn't care. That's it. And so that's why he gets brought up a lot, because it's a more recent thing. I mean, he died, I don't know, in the 70s, 80s. Yeah. Maybe even later. I forget. Okay, yeah. No problem. Thank you, Semiotics, for clarifying. Okay. Yeah, so here's the thing. But they're saying this question here is well, you can't be perfect. None of us are perfect. It's the idea that we're going to separate out, as a consequentialist, the good from the art with the crappy of the person. As a consequentialist, what are you doing? If the good from the art is producing more good, you should not do that. And the idea that you can make more good someplace else, again, that's okay, yeah, you could be better ethically, but I mean, you're getting a good out of the art. Okay. So the assumption of aesthetic meritocracy is ridiculous for imperfect human beings like us. We live in a world where there's that was the embarrassment of Richard thing. Okay. For the hypothetical white supremacist Swedish black metal band that is worthy, there's a problem of hypothetical non-white supremacist Swedish black metal band that is just as worthy. We live in a world where the embarrassment of riches makes this rather likely. So yes, you will miss out on something good when you stop listening to the white supremacist band, but you would also have missed out on something good if you didn't. In fact, the social structures of the world make it very unlikely for us to be good aesthetic meritocrats. Structural forces like colonialism, racism, and sexism make it very likely that many worthy works are simply inaccessible to many people, including us. The same structural forces also make it very unlikely that the works you discover via popular media, via your friends' shares, via your algorithm recommendations, just happen to be the most worthy ones. That's fair. You're not actually getting the best art. You're getting the best thing that they can present to you that makes them money. It is true that the heuristic of avoiding immoral artists are at odds with the assumption of aesthetic meritocracy. Yeah. I didn't think I was calling you dumb, but after over 2.5 hours, I do start to lose my mind, and it gets a little harder to be on top of everything. But we're getting through this, so it's okay. But it is worth reminding ourselves, imperfect human beings in an unjust word, don't worry, DCI, that's a good thing to be stuck on. It's a big discussion. So imperfect beings in an unjust world, that the heuristics we currently use, consciously or unconsciously, are probably equally at odds with the assumption of aesthetic meritocracy. If two heuristics are equally are about equally problematic at promoting the most aesthetically worthy, but only one has the potential, however small, to be ethically problematic as well, then we might as well adopt the heuristic that is only flawed in one respect. What about music critics? They too are imperfect human beings in an unjust world, so for analogous reasons, I doubt that the heuristic that they use to decide which music is to write about and which music not to write about does any better at approximating the ideals of aesthetic meritocracy. Given the structural forces of our world, popularity is an especially poor heuristic because it is likely to be both aesthetically and ethically problematic. Should you stop listening to immoral artists? It probably doesn't matter, but you might as well. Sensei says, okay, cool. I don't like this. This is the, it doesn't really matter, but do whatever answer. This is kind of weak. I kind of like them when they were saying up here that just take the consequentialist standpoint that like you could find something equally good if you tried, you might as well, or you can just keep listening to it because the badness of those people is not the goodness of aesthetics. I mean, that seemed a little bit more interesting to me, but this sort of like, well, do whatever because,
Side Semiotics gifted 25 bits. Side Semiotics says, she'll love this stream and the discussion period. New sentence, just kidding.
Hey, the TTS worked today. That's always good. Thank you, Sensei Max, for the 25 bits. Appreciate it. MDD says, sometimes when I hear people talk about their ethical theory camps, it reminds me of the houses in Harry Potter. Very much so, very much so. First, they study some philosophy, then they're assigned to camp. Please place me anywhere but deontology. Consequentialism, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's very much like that. And you want to know why people pick deontology? Because you get very easy answers very, very quickly. If you want to say that, like it's morally bad that you can like love your family and like protect your family, deontology is best for that. Like you get like right answers very quickly. And I know why they do it. It's like, yeah, if you need certain like basic facts covered, you get to go like just go into deontology, like just go there. If you want to just be like, well, I don't like them because like you can make up stuff and like the rules don't make any sense, yeah, go be a consequentialist, just go make the most good. It's like, okay. And then if like you don't like that stuff, okay, yeah, you're with Aris, go be a virtue ethicist. Like that's how it goes. But secret is most of life is like that. I mean, it's like you can go get yourself like a little alignment chart for any number of professions or whatever. Like what kind of programmer are you? Are you like object oriented, or are you what's the other thing with lambdas and stuff? The functionalist, whatever it is. It's like where do you fall on your alignment chart? You can go talk about Vim versus Emacs for editor wars. Vim, by the way. Like I'm running Ubuntu. I run Linux on my computers, like Mac. It's like, yeah, it's all much like that. Aris is a VTuber ethicist. Ooh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You see, I don't know all my terms, but yeah, functional and reactive. Like, a lot of this stuff just falls into like categories and stuff like that, like houses in Harry Potter, Coke or Pepsi. Exactly. So, Stephanie Partridge. Let's see, how many more do we have? We've got this one and then this one. Okay, and that's it. Did anyone go to school with houses? No, I went to public school. Thank you very much. We don't do that here in the U.S. Not public school, at least. Yeah. Recently, serious allegations of sexual misconduct have been raised against high-profile men, including male artists, for example, James Toback, Kevin Spacey, James Woods, Terry Richardson. Oh, I didn't know James Woods got accused of anything, and Louis C.K. These are no doubt not even the tip of the iceberg. Such public revelations naturally lead us to wonder how we, as appreciators, should respond to the creative works of sexually predatory individuals. One answer is that we should withdraw our financial support of these works to signal that such behavior is intolerable and to undercut one of the main incentives for tolerating it, which is money. Still, success here depends on collective action, and given that on its opening weekend, Daddy's Home 2, starring Mel Gibson, outperformed industry expectations, conservative expectations seem warranted. Time will tell. Yeah, it's like a lot of times people just don't care. Still, we might want to know how, when confronted with such creative works, we should respond to the artistic elements of those works. There are two different questions lurking here. First, might some facts about an artist's moral character impact their appreciative, relevant features of their artworks or cultural products? Yeah, so did their morals do something to their art? And second, should our willingness to engage with these works from an art appreciative perspective be affected by our knowledge about the creators? Yeah, can we separate our knowledge out? Good question. Many will think that the answers to both of these questions is an obvious no. After all, Miles Davis, by his own admission, physically abused the women in his life. But few would think that Kind of Blue is somehow made a worse jazz record by this fact, or that our enjoyment should be thereby disrupted. And we might think that this generalizes to all such cases, but the truth is more nuanced than this. Let's take Louis C.K.'s recent admission that he routinely masturbated in front of female colleagues. It's always such a head shaker on that one. I will not bother to explain the troubling moral nuance of this case, but it is obviously quite bad. In light of this, well, I don't know how bad. It's bad. I don't know what the quite is there. I mean, he didn't kill nobody. Yeah, but okay. In light of this, we might wonder if in this case, the answer to either of our aforementioned two appreciative questions might be yes. Why might we think that it is? Well, in Louis C.K.'s case, art often imitates life in a way that might be thought to rightly bear on interpretation of at least some of his comedic and directorial work. Yeah, because he talks about interpersonal shit a lot, and so the fact that he's whacking off in front of women, or no, not even women, like his people he works with, it's like that's weird. Louis C.K. should have read your book. Okay. After all, masturbation is not an uncommon theme for him. For example, in a stand-up bit about sexual differences between men and women, he quips, "I come every day and I fucked maybe 20 times in my life." This line now seems to have taken a new, perhaps unintended, expressive meaning. Yeah, see, now it makes that line a lot weirder. Yeah, Louis C.K. let you down with that. Yeah. I know a bunch of people in this community were big Louis C.K. fans, and it did affect his work, how they view his work. I might say the same about his recent directorial work, I Love You, Daddy. Here, the main character, who pursues a relationship with a very young showrunner and is said to be thinly veiled nod to Woody Allen, spends an entire scene engaging in mock masturbation in the presence of an unwitting female actress. Of the scenes, film critic Kyle Buchanan says that cannot help but evoke some of the stories that Louis C.K. accusers have just told. Yeah, seems weird. In this sort of case, moral facts about the artist not only legitimately affect our appreciative responses, at least some of us are more disturbed and less amused, but we might think that they should. Here, art imitates life in a way that will and should alter our appreciative responses, and will likely find it less funny, or at least funny in a different, more painful way. Moreover, we might find it also affects our assessment of the appreciative properties and even the merit of the work. Given our knowledge about Louis C.K., I Love You, Daddy is plausibly less funny and merits being reviewed to less acclaim than it would otherwise. It seems that sometimes facts about an artist's moral life will affect our interpretation of, attribution of appreciative relevant properties to, and overall evaluation of an artist's work. A similar claim likely holds for at least some of Woody Allen's work. Of course, all of this is consistent with the thought that Kind of Blue is a noteworthy jazz album, since here there is no plausible claim to be made that we see Davis' moral life manifest in his work, at least not in any troubling way. There are cases and there are cases. Yeah, so it's like, if you're talking about like music, like how does like drumming have anything to do with, abusing people? But if you're talking about like Louis C.K. whacking off in front of like his coworkers, and then he makes a movie about a guy whacking off in front of his coworkers, like the two things are very close, versus like playing a guitar versus, whacking off, not the same. So maybe like then you start to realize that it's not what you thought was going on in the scene. And then all of a sudden you're thinking about the art differently. Finally, it is worth noting that there may be some moral violations that are a bridge too far and so merit our rejection of an artist's work altogether, whatever we'd say about their appreciative properties. Like, and this is the Heidegger one. Like, the fact that he's a Nazi is just like, okay, a little too much. Viper says it didn't bother me. In his mind, when he thought he was asking for consent, he was doing the right thing in his mind, but had to have the power dynamic explained to him. In fact, it sparked a whole global conversation about it, but he was judged and canceled before he had a chance to learn. Yeah, but he should have known better, is the thing. It's like, he ain't that dumb about like power dynamics. He should have known better. Yeah, 437, the masturbation episode, absolutely. So it's like, this is the problem with like philosophers are doing dumb things. It's like, no, you're smart enough to have known better. Like, you can't play like, oh, I didn't really understand the power dynamic. No. Like, philosophers, like, they've heard these arguments before. They don't get the pass because they can't play stupid. Louis C.K., I expect, is smart enough to realize about power dynamics. And it's like, okay, yeah, he should have known better, and maybe he didn't know well enough, and yeah, he could have had a little bit of more time to understand, but it's like, it's dumb. Like, that's the problem. And so, but like, he's not like fully canceled. Like, he's still working. Now, he's not doing the same thing as he was before, but like, it's not like he was like banned from the planet. So it's like, yeah, that's the problem. It's like, how dumb are you allowing people to play too? It's like, oh, I didn't get it. You know, that works sometimes, but like, not all the time. Okay, so, oh yes, where was I? This is like, yeah, so sometimes you can reject outright the work altogether. This is not a wildly implausible suggestion. We might think that there are certain egregious forms of racism are like that. For example, we might think, were Hitler's paintings moderately competent, we'd still have a compelling moral reason to avoid responding to them positively. You know, this is the Heidegger thing for that reason too. Whether or not Roman Polanski's raping of female children is one such violation does not seem to be a settled moral question. Time will tell. Yeah, I mean, Roman Polanski was like raping kids, like, and people still watched his movies. So yeah. Viper says, I mean, it's fine saying that now after the global conversation, but it's nothing that I'd never considered before. I never had to. I just didn't wank in front of anyone. Yeah, see, that's the thing, though. It's like, he was a boss. It's like, I mean, maybe he didn't consider it. Maybe he should have considered it. I understand that, like, you know, you're working and you don't have time to think about ethics. Sometimes you're just doing other stuff, and he thought he was doing the right thing in what he understood to be the right thing. He would ask consent. Now, it's like, it's another thing that, like, when people can't really say no because your boss is asking and you need that job. So it's like, yeah, he was their colleague. I don't think he was a boss. Like, it was people who depended on him. Maybe he wasn't their boss, but like, I thought he was way more powerful. So yeah. Yeah, and I'm with Aris. Ignorance isn't always an excuse. It's like, you could be willfully ignorant. It's like, it's not always right. That Roman Polanski petition signed by all those high-profile people is so disappointing. He was a boss, yeah. But yeah, it's like, you know, people line up to support rich and powerful people a lot of times also for other reasons. You know, they think they might get a cut, you know, like, you know, helped out or something. But it's disappointing, yes. I mean, people are very forgiving of people they want to be forgiving to. Now, I don't know the details of everything about the Louis C.K. I'm just telling you my limited understanding of this. I haven't gotten into it deep. I know if you can go talk in Aris' stream, he knows more about it than I do. And so, like, call me out if I got anything wrong. I'm perfectly happy being wrong, especially about something like this. Let me know. I don't want to dog Louis C.K. Or drag him through the mud any more than he already has been if he doesn't deserve it. That's unfair. So, yeah. Viper says if it was their boss, I could see it, but they were people who were using him to advance their career. It was different. Oh, so you're saying it was more people, he was using them and they were using him and he was using them. But I don't see the point. You'll have to explain it to me, semiotics. It's getting late. I'm not as quick as I want to be. So, but yeah. Oh, the whole discussion is unfair because he's some guy. Oh, now I got it. Thank you for explaining to me. Viper says, I do agree that ignorance isn't always an excuse, but I think he was making an effort to be respectful. So he thought it was more okay because they were trying to use him to advance their career, and he thought it was okay then because it's like, yeah, they're using him. He was helping them out, and this was just like quid pro quo. Seems a little like you don't really trade sex favors for work, but I mean, am I exactly against that? Not really. It just seems like at least then unprofessional. Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati is like, that's right. We overconflate a celebrity with something much more great than it is. Yeah. He thought he was asking for consent from peers at an early stage in their career. Yeah, that just seems very crappy though, Vipers, because it's very hard to say that like people who he could make famous very quickly could say no at that point. So like early stage in career in like show business is not the same as like someone who already has a desk job and would have a nice progression and like other stuff. Like that seems a little less good, because this is like, like actors have always slept with directors to get jobs. Like this is a long thing, like a big thing. Like that's fair, but like it seems like it's an abusive relationship still. That doesn't make it okay. And he was like doing the minimum of like, asking, is this like, do I have consent? Do I think he thought of himself as a queenmaker? No, but like, yes, that's why here's the thing. If he thought they were doing quid pro quo, then he thought that they thought that. And so then he must have thought it. Yeah. Let's see what MDD got with this, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Aris is probably trying to get some work done and he's like popping a brain vessel. But yeah, see, that's the thing. If he was doing quid pro quo, then he had to consider that. He had to have, because that was the reason that it was okay, was because they were asking him for something and he was getting something in return. Since Eric says, my point is it's easy to judge people we don't know, so it's best not to know the actor, just know the art. Yeah, exactly. Just focus on the artist, okay? DCI Bank says, the comedian doesn't read the room and the people's reactions. He should understand that it was under duress if anyone said yes. Who wants to watch a guy beat it off? I don't know. People are kinky. But yeah, he should have been able... This is the thing. I feel like he should have known better, but like I could be wrong. Maybe he just was a little... missed the point. But yeah. I don't think he was doing quid pro quo. That was something you read into the words. I should have explained better. Fair, but like, what did he think he was getting? Like, if they were early career people and he was late and he was asking them for consent and they were like putting up with it because, he was helping them out, I don't see how this isn't like, he must have understood what was going on at that point. Yeah, think about how many people do the same and never get exposed. They're human people in the shittiest restaurants. Absolutely. I mean, actors are people, and like, some of them are very smart and some of them are very dumb. Some of them are good people and some of them are bad people. And it doesn't all just break down the way, easy things like we want it to be. It's like not all the smart people are good people, and sometimes the dumb people are very good people. Like they just may not be like, very clever about stuff. That they may be great people actually. And like it's not like you just can't like separate people out so simply. Matthew Stroll and Mary Beth Willard. In our earlier piece on the question of how we should treat the work of morally bad artists, we argue that the aesthetic value of an artwork is independent of any moral appraisal of the artist, and that the moral badness of the artist does not automatically outweigh the aesthetic value of the work. No artwork is owed anyone's attention, of course, and if one finds that the background knowledge of the moral transgression of the artist negatively impacts one's appreciation of the work, it is perfectly reasonable to decline to engage with it further. The same reaction we have used to involve the allegations of being gay in Hollywood. Yeah. Viper says, I just get in the sense that if someone had explained the power dynamic to him before it all went public, he would have been really, oh shit, and stopped. Maybe. Entirely possible. It's just, like, this is why I was reflecting it back to philosophers. A lot of these people could have and should have known better. They aren't stupid people, and there are people in the community that they would have, even if they didn't, no one told them, they would have at least known, they would have had at least a sense or known better, because the ideas are out there in philosophy, and like that's the thing. So it's like, maybe it's right, it's true that he would have been like, I didn't quite get it at the time. Okay, but like you still fucked up. Now I know how I agreed to go on Viper's roundtable. Happy to go on his roundtable. That was a good time. Yeah, I'm going long today. You love it? Okay, yeah. Long, hard, and spirited. I only wish I was said other times. Said that for the joke. Yeah, 3-hour stream. I'm going to be done soon. Going to Subway, I need something. No, it's getting late here. Maybe I'll have some popcorn after this. I don't know. But if you see if it works. And the bot's down. There we go. See? How do you like that? Thank you for the bit. But I mean, I don't know why. Oh, I have a sub. Did someone sub? No, I didn't get a sub. Thank you though. But I appreciate. It didn't register if you sent one through, but I appreciate it anyway. If it is. The capital A, no, because it didn't even register that one bit came through. Even not the TTS. It didn't even say that the thing came through. Yeah, I can restart it. You'll have to give me a sec, but thank you for the bits. Let me just refresh the connection. So yeah, because you didn't even get the video. So yeah, if you send the bit through again, it should go now. There we go. But I don't have it up all the time because I think it just interferes with my screen, and it doesn't actually always tell me when it's down because it refreshes and it tries to refresh itself, but then there's a gap sometimes where it's not really working. What are you gonna do? But did Louis C.K. not have a responsibility to educate himself on the moral nuances that come with this success of power? Everyone has a moral thing. Again, do you actually have time to get all these things done that are your responsibility? It's hard. It's not like when you get more money, you get less problems. You get more money, more problems. And all of a sudden you have an empire to run, like a comedy empire. You've got a ton of people that you're responsible for. And it's do you have time to go and be all right, do I have a business person that monitors all my behavior? No. And so it's yeah, of course you have a responsibility, but it's not so simple. My bot always crashes. You should know better. People taking bits from the reward. I know. I'm sorry, but I'm running it also through Wine on Linux. It's not Linux software, so I'm doing a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't be doing. But yeah, thank you for the bits. Yeah, moral nuances versus social norms. Exactly. It's how hard everyone can't be good at everything. So it's hard. Okay, so many artists are horrible human beings, and to dismiss the work of all such artists means foreclosing a whole lot of aesthetic value. See, it's so funny because someone above was just oh, there's always more artists. It's not true. It's not true. Let's see. Nope. Third time's a charm. We failed. All right, and now you're less enthusiastic. I'm sorry. All right, it will give the wrong name here, but we're going to at least try to get the TTS working. Let's see if it'll work. Because it's not...
David Hewlett gifted 1 bits. David Hewlett says, the third time is the charm, and now I am less enthusiastic.
So yeah, I'm sorry about it. But yeah, sorry about the not working. Iris says the allegations were circulating in the public for 5 years before the article went public, and they're probably around longer. He had plenty of opportunity to learn, and people knew it was going on, and they had a lot to hush the charges. See. I knew Iris knew more than me, but yeah. So there's more to it. Okay. So the authors remain committed to the claim that aesthetic and moral value are distinct, and that neither should automatically override the other. Yeah, I don't know why it did not connect. It's so annoying. Because you could see the TTS was actually working today. And it worked the first time. It's just so annoying. Maybe it's down on their side now. There's nothing I can do about that. Okay, but now we've been invited to discuss the question of appraisal in moral detail. What general principles govern what the morally decent consumer should do when they discover an artist whose work interests them has behaved badly? We've been asked to consider a scenario where someone discovers that their favorite Scandinavian black metal band turns out to be white supremacists. We think it matters whether or not the music itself actually expresses the artist's reprehensible beliefs. Yeah, so this is the first people. Does the art actually represent the bad crap. If one learns that the band's lyrics advocate in a serious way for genocide, let's say, it's hard to imagine this not coming to mind while listening, even if the lyrics as delivered are incomprehensible. Some listeners might be able to mentally block out background knowledge of the lyrics' content in order to keep enjoying the music, but that would have to be some damn fine black metal to be worth the psychological gymnastics. This case is a variant of the stock example of the Turner Diaries, where an appreciation of the work requires adopting a stance that a morally decent person should be incapable of adopting. Enjoying music often involves some sort of emotional embrace, and in the case in question, one would be emotionally embracing pro-genocidal music. Since a morally decent person should be incapable of doing this, the work's moral badness becomes its own inoculant. But suppose now that the lyrics don't express the artist's ideology and don't directly interfere with the uptake. One of the two of us, Matt, is the black metal fan. The example isn't such a stretch for him. Many black metal artists have committed horrible crimes. Indeed, the drummer who appears on Matt's favorite black metal album, Emperors in the Night Side Eclipse, committed an utterly loathsome crime. Emperor's lyrics are rather abstract, though, and don't endorse the sort of crime that the drummer committed, and so background knowledge of their content would not so directly interfere with uptake in the way that pro-genocidal lyrics should. So what should the ethical listener do? If one still loves the music, then the aesthetic value one reaps from listening needs to be weighed against the moral value of abstaining. Yeah, tisk, Matt. What are the possible moral upsides to abstinence? What's a refraction period about Cinesemiacs? Maybe I'm missing something. Okay. So Tiresias maybe. Moral becomes social enough intensity in crossing a line. Interesting, yeah. The two clearest, what are the possible moral upsides to abstinence? The two clearest possibilities are the abstinence supports a general sense of solidarity with respect to the relevant moral principle, and that is a way of punishing the artists. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, sorry. And possibly preventing them from harassing further victims. Well, maybe don't. Yeah. Well, this was the question was involved in chat, but I figured it out. Sorry. Our main worry because I missed a comment is the problem. Yeah, I gotta get off. Gotta finish. I'm dying here. Our main worry with both of these possibilities is that they overestimate the importance of private consumption choices, distinguishing three types of cases. A. Further engagement with the artist's work would directly benefit the artist, at least a teensy bit. B. Further engagement with the artist's work would not directly benefit them, but other people would be made aware of whether or not one engages with their work. And C. Further engagement with the artist's work would not directly benefit them, and no one would know about it except perhaps one's inner circle, anonymous strangers who happen to be at the same museum. You gotta get off, yeah. And as I've said before, I don't really care with what you do with my videos. If you want to use these for your personal enjoyment, go right ahead. Refraction period is when you come and you're mentally gone for a bit. Oh, it's post-nut clarity. I see. Or post-nut like euphoria and then clarity or something. All right, for those of us who have not succumbed to exclusively using streaming services, a good deal of our engagement with our art falls under C. Yeah, because no one knows you're doing it. We listen to albums we already own, look at whichever paintings in the museum are included within our general admission fee, watch movies we bought on DVD years ago, and we don't go telling everyone about it. Engagement with art that falls under C doesn't do anything to support or damage a general sense of solidarity and doesn't punish or support the artist. Of course, it's always possible to turn C into B by getting on social media and broadcasting one's abstinence. Abrupt introversion syndrome. Yeah. Hey, I just want to let everyone know that I closed my eyes when I walked past a Gauguin painting in the museum because he was a horrible person. Guess who just threw away his Blu-ray of Roman Polanski's Chinatown? This guy. Yeah, I mean, anyone who doesn't know, Gauguin dropped his family to go across the world to go paint, and he became a famous painter because of it, but he dropped his wife and young kid just to go be a painter because he wanted to go paint. So if that's your thing, yeah, that's the moral signaling. You're doing something out of it. But yeah, if that's your thing, we won't try to talk you out of it, but we find it clearly ridiculous to suppose that we have a moral obligation to engage in such grandstanding, especially to the point where we would be obligated to throw away our Chinatown Blu-ray in order to announce to our small group of social media followers that we have done so. What about in the case that falls under A? This becomes a pretty standard collective action problem. Streaming an album a few times on Spotify puts a negligible amount of money in an artist's pocket. If enough people do it, it adds up. If one knows that one's own absence will have little or no effect on the consumption choices of others, all it really accomplishes is depriving the artist of a negligible portion of the aggregate. You find this fascinating? Yeah. It's a good topic. Separating the art from the artist. Yeah. If one believes the artist should be deprived of income as a form of punishment or in order to prevent them from being in a position to harm their victims, then one needs to weigh how important it is to withhold a tiny portion of their aggregate income. Well, see, this is the point of doing the moral signaling on Twitter, is you get a lot of people to do it, and then maybe it does actually add up to a significant amount of money. Don't forget, Gauguin also probably slept with underage Tahitian girls. Fair. Didn't really think about that. But yeah. I mean, I didn't know what he was doing out there, but sleeping with underage girls, Tahitian or not, it's probably something you should avoid. Cinesemic says, like posting on Facebook, I never masturbate in front of coworkers and I'm a really good person. That would be a really good message. Yes, that you should do that, Cinesemiotics. We make the compromises all the time with respect to collective action problems. Practically no one... Thank you for pinning that. That was a good thing to pin. Practically no one goes to every possible length to avoid making tiny contributions to big bag aggregates. Yeah, because I mean, we all have to buy food, and that goes into corporate farms, and we can't stop doing that. DCI says, I came into this article thinking it's right to separate the art from artist, but now I've changed your stance. Interesting. There you go. Yeah. Sorry, Vipers. Had to change your mind. It happens. Yep. Sensei Max says, most people's private lives are private and completely unknown to each other. Sexuality is deeply dysfunctional in America. Fair. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, too. While it's hard to know where to draw the line, no reasonable moral code requires total abstinence from any action that makes a negligible contribution to a large societal problem. It's possible to be a morally decent person while still sometimes indulging in various conveniences and luxuries that do a tiny bit to harm the environment. Likewise, for the case of art consumption, no one is required to make every possible sacrifice of aesthetic value that would have a tiny positive effect on a morally significant aggregate. Watching Chinatown on a streaming service is compatible with a morally upright stance with respect to the importance of combating sexual assault and supporting sexual assault victims. It's like a little bit of consequentialism there. You'd be like, all right, yeah, Robin Plants, you might have got my penny, but I worked with a whole bunch of sexual assault victims and preventative programs, so I'm going to prevent it all going forward. Seems okay. Yeah. Morally decent person, what the fuck says who? Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You can still feel upstanding about yourself. I guess you can feel like it. Now, it says who, it's up to your opinion. You can indulge a little bit, as long as you're not terrible. So, but that's the thing. It's this is, again, we were talking about deontology and consequentialism. This is one of the things that deontology has. Deontology says, look, you don't have to get over this bar. You don't have to be a great person to be morally decent. Consequentialism is a little bit overbearing. It's saying, well, you didn't do all the things you could have all the time. And so this is the whole thing. Yeah, it's true. This one is a little self-congratulatory, Cinesemiotics. I agree. Yeah. Rethia says, what is the point of what is the philosophy of believing that morality is 100% tied to the individual? Anything else is solipsistic. So, what do you mean tied to the individual? Your actions? Or your subjective viewing of the world? Or, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by tied to the individual there. Because, look, you can be a virtue ethicist. You can say, I'm a good person because of how I've built myself up, and I only do good things because I've built myself to be a good person. Your subjective logic and belief. So you're a, I'm still not sure I understand. How you view the world, you think you're a good person, so you're a good person because you only do good things. I mean, there's a lot of crappy people out there that think that they're, good people because, they were doing what they could at the time. That is, sort of, I mean, moral behavior is only, yeah, but what do you mean by like subjective logic? Like you're doing the best you could at the time? It's like, yeah, morality is what you make of it in reality. Yeah, sure. So that means there's no like objective, like good and right and wrong out in the world. That's a very popular position. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. So you're talking about like what it is for you. Like so you, and then what you do is like it's sort of emotive, like how you feel. Like if you see someone in pain, you feel an emotional response, and that would be like that makes you a decent human being. That's fine. So then you have like some sort of emotive theory there where you are reacting subjectively to the world and sort of, yeah, I mean that's the thing. The good Vipers makes a good point. Define good and decent then, because it's only going to be like your reactions. There's no like public concept of good, no like universal understanding of decent then. That's just sort of like your moral code that you're acting by. And it's like then yeah, you can judge yourself how well you adhere to your moral code. So yeah. So good points. Dude, you're gonna crash soon. We're a bit off huge piece here and we have to chew later. Now we're almost done. This is the end. Like right there. So I'm gonna crash soon, but like I can get one more paragraph in. Alright. So, yeah, to finish up, not everyone will be so powerless, and some might be in a better position to make a difference. A critic may be justified in deciding that she should dedicate her column, inches, and page views to an artist who don't support genocide. A promoter who organizes black metal concerts has a very good reason not to give white supremacists any hint that their ideology is acceptable to the larger community, and this would be justified in declining to book the act. But none of this applies to the casual fan. Yeah, they're giving everyone the out if you just want to be like, good aesthetics. Setting aside the consequences of private consumption, what about the effect that systematically abstaining or not from the work of morally troubling artists might have on our character? Should we develop our characters in such a way that our disapproval of the moral transgressions of an artist drowns out any aesthetic value their work might have? This strikes us as a push toward moral sainthood, and we don't see it as a desirable ideal. Even setting aside the contingent fact that a lot of great artists are morally bad, we just don't think it would be a desirable way to go through life. One would have to constantly filter aesthetic experience through non-aesthetic criteria. One would have to train oneself to be insensible to the spontaneous appreciation of beauty, lest it lead one astray. Touring a museum, one would have to read all the wall text and Google the artist before letting oneself appreciate a painting for its aesthetic merits. No thanks. Yeah. So that's it. Do we have anything to say about this? These people sort of like, look, you have to give yourself a break. Life is hard enough as is. If it gets really bad that it's affecting you and like it's going to affect other people, yeah, stop. But like other than that, like it's not a big deal. Is it more to like AI art? Well, that's the question. If it has something that is valuable to you in it, then it seems like it's fine. Now, are you abusing all the artists that the AI stole their training data from? Kinda. You are kind of. None of those artists were compensated to train the to train the AI. Well, it's the artist and the AI. It's it's a composite of the artist it was trained on and the algorithm that did the training, and then also the person that prompted it. So it's a group piece, in my opinion. And I made that off the top of my head, so I, like, on the spot, I have no idea if that makes any sense. Yeah. Sorry, I keep hitting my head on the mic. Okay, so, cool. Alright, so, again, this is not a whole lot more to say here. We can give this one a little rating. Again, this is the emote review. This is going to be fun ideas, but there's nothing too deep here. And it was a pop piece. So it's like, this is, I like Aesthetics for Birds as a good website. I'm partial to this stuff also. So, and there was a group piece also. So Retheus puts a brain. Now, here's the problem. You can only use my emotes, the ones that are on the screen and the vote yay and vote nay. So, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the brain and brain dance is the first, the spelling of brain dance is small. There you go. Thank you, Aris. So yeah, it should get a brain dance, I think, because it had some fun ideas. Basically, it's the definition of a group piece. Let's see. What else am I going to give it? Retheus got brain dance again. Wow, why is vote yay not working? Oh, vote yay is the EAY or small. Sorry. I will fix that later. Oh, we got a slice and dice. So he likes the arguments. It's not a bad idea. We could give this a knife too. Knife. Yeah. Alright, I'll fix it later. And DCI gives it a vote yay also. Yeah, but you could also just type brain dance too. Yeah, because I'm gonna have to fix this later, Retheus. That's the only thing. Because I don't want to use other people's art on my website. I can't. I don't want to steal somebody else's emotes. You're definitely not allowed to do that, actually. So yeah. So sorry. And brain dance starts with small b. I gotta fix the review thing here to make it the thing, so it'll say that. But like you can see the text on the right is what it is. But I'll fix it later. So, yay, there we go. Okay, got it. So yeah, and we'll give this a vote yay. This is an okay piece. Yeah. Well, do you want to give it 2 brain dances or just 1, Retheus? Because you can give it 2. I'm only giving all this stuff 1. This is like, it's a pop piece. It's not like very like great. I'm not giving it like multiple ones, but like I'm giving it 1. It's fine. Now, was it shiny but like no substance? No, I thought most of the time these people had something to say. There was 1 or 2 that are a little weaker than the others. So like thank you for reviewing. You give the emoji 0 of 10. You give the stream 11 out of 10. Well, which one? You don't like my brain dance? I actually really like brain dance. I mean, it's maybe you don't like the actual emoji, but like, yeah. So, you hate this? Well, good. I like the strong. You have to install better TTV, and I'm sorry for everyone on mobile and stuff like that. Yeah, no. I can see it on the last one. Aris, now, God damn it, Aris, I'm gonna have to drop the delete that one off because are you calling this paper poop? Yeah, the golden turd's a good one. I like the what's it called? The grapes for shriveling up, but yeah. So, no, you have to get this to work. Hey, Tommy, what's up? Do you mean to poop on this? Yeah, I know, but like the emote's great. Yeah, thank you. That was one of the ideas. You should have a lo-fi girl emoji for that papers that have no conclusion. I mean, that's the one I think of as the shrivel up. They just don't go, like they lose all their fire. Not installing mods. That's fine. But like, yeah, you will do better on Twitch in general with better TTV, but entirely understandable. Hey, Tommy, how am I tonight? I am at the end of stream. This is a long stream for me. I usually don't go over 3 hours, and I'm approaching 3.5 at this point. But it's been fun. We did this aesthetic for birds because we had a question about author intent of art. And so we were doing this thing from Aesthetics for Birds. Can we separate the art from the artists? Which was a group piece. And then before that, we did some little piece on AI and, what are we going to do about AI from AI in society. A little opinion piece. So that was a nice paper too. Just a little fun. But yeah, I'm going to get off. Tommy says, I agree that any more than 3 hours of philosophy is untenably psychologically. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay at the moment, but like it would be really hard if I had to do like some complicated philosophy and trying to explain it. You're doing pretty good on Twitch these last few years as a content prospector. Well, that's cool. I'm just saying chat will be like, it'll be good. DCI says these stream nights are like cocaine, 5 a.m. in the kitchen table. Think about what intent is, what art truly is, and why authors are sometimes dicks. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you like the streams, but yeah, Tommy, you get your paper finished and your semester finished up because you were getting your last little bits of your coursework done last I saw you. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to get your review in? Now's the time. Like I'm gonna cut it, and then we're going to go find someone to raid after this. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. We've got one more paper to go. Paper on Quine. I want to vomit. Yeah. That's a good point. All right, so let's... All right, that's it for this, and thank you all. That's a good idea. We can go look at some of the AI art that we've been graced with.